I met a gypsy.
I think the demise of the American footprint is based on the fact that we let the grassroots. I mean, the thing is, dirt track racing is what. I mean, that requires a skill set that I think is absolutely essential to be a good road racer. Just the control and the bike moving around underneath you and it not being so alarming. But it just imagine like a business just going out of business, locking the doors. It's like, well, nothing's ever going to come out of there because the doors are closed. And that's kind of a simplistic way of saying what we've done here in America. We just sort of went out of business. And so we're not producing any more talent. But we got to, reopen the business but the frustrating part is we've kind of, given them all of our secrets, and so we're going to have to get really creative with how we're going to, get this thing moving again, because just to come back with the same sort of protocol is not going to be good enough. You're going to have to find a way to improve upon that substantially.
Yeah. Do you think that there is a resurgence of the MotoAmerica series? Like, I think there is some, building blocks starting to take place, but it's definitely a very, very long way away from MotoGP level, right?
Well, that's the thing. And then you saw where, Justin Marks, being an American owner, come in and purchase that existing team that went
He's
out.
a savage, bro.
Yeah, no, listen, him and his father have done extremely well. And, but the thing is to see him, having a sort of an American team again is really, it's really an awesome feeling. But, he just hired, David Brevio, who's the team principal. And you have to stop and think about this. He's an American. This is being labeled so-called an American team, but really there's nothing American about it. And the team principal he just hired is an Italian. So, you just ask yourself questions like, well, I wonder how long what's the shelf life for him there? Because if you load this thing up with Europeans, I think we got to be careful not to set ourselves up, to think, oh, now there's an American team. Now there's like that interim step, because it's really not an American. The only thing American is the owner, because everything else in there is nothing American about it. And I think that's initially, the guy PJ Rashidi, who was involved. Yeah. I think he was really wanting to take that team sort of back to that direction and get Americans involved. So you could, here we go. It goes back to like the Kenny Roberts team. That was all American. Mm-hmm. That was all American team. When you look at McDoohan's team, with Jerry Burgess, with all his mechanics, that was an Aussie team. You can't label that anything other than what that was. But we can't fool ourselves. Just because it's an American owner doesn't mean it's an American team. And it'll be interesting to kind of see how things transpire there, because I don't know, what Justin's intentions are. I'm not so sure, how much of an effort he wants to put into sort of rebuilding, the sort of American upbringing. But just by some of the things I've seen so far, I would question it. I mean, it causes me to have some concern, about really how American it is.
Mm. Well, I mean, it's honestly cool to hear your take on it. Like you've been there and you've lived it, so you've definitely got a perspective that you kind of know what's going on in that sense.
Well, it's like me. Like there's no way I could ever know Australia better than you. You were born there. You know the country. You know everything about it. You know the culture. You know what people like, and so. With Justin having this American team, I mean, I'm not saying that David Brevio doesn't know about America, but he doesn't know it the way Americans know America. And so, we just have to watch. Maybe there's a plan there that I'm not aware of that could sort of come back and perhaps mitigate my concern. But at the moment, I have concerns, just in seeing some of the choices being made of really, how American it truly is.
Yeah, well, I guess there's like a short term play and a long term play, like you've got a team that's got to make money and turn a profit and be stable. And really, the way to do that in the short term is results. So I'm guessing he's caught in a mix of like, how do I get the results I need right now to keep this thing going versus that longer play of, bringing through the Americans to where it kind of can be an American team.
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's what I said without seeing that
Yeah.
blueprint. But I'm just I'm just looking at it more from an outside thing. That when
Yeah.
you see certain moves, it questions
No,
like,
no, I
well,
get it.
some of this stuff
Yeah.
doesn't that math doesn't add up. But
Yeah.
but maybe the long term plan, the math adds up. But still, initially too, it's winning races over there is. When you have budgets, about how do you spend that budget, where do you spend the budget, what are the priorities, and some of the team principals have different views on how that should be done.
Well, and they just have relationships with people. So if you hire an Italian, that's going to dictate the language that you want to be speaking in the most. That's the easiest to speak in. That it's going to dictate the contacts that you have. Like there is a follow-on effect that comes from like hiring a guy like that.
Exactly. And so we just got to keep an eye on it and kind of see what happens. I definitely want to see them do well. But it's like coming into this, and especially those guys buying the team so late and
Yeah, kind
just
of scrambling.
well,
just to make it
it's
happen.
like jumping into the Pacific Ocean with no vest on, no life vest. I mean, they're in it deep, and of course Justin is just trying to learn about all this. So you can imagine it's like drinking water through a fire hose. And so yeah, he's definitely has his work cut out there for him. But I want to see those guys do good, and if there's anything I could ever do to help that project out, I'm all for it, because I'm just all American and want to see America sort of get back on their feet and have the opportunity to get back over there to Europe and start doing sort of things that happened when we left.
Yeah. If I was Justin, I would be trying to get Jack Miller for a short term, like to bridge that gap and like have that more the English speaking English writer. Like at least you're kind of getting in that lane. Like Americans love Australians. Jack he loves America. Like I think that would be a pretty sweet fit for that.
See,
initially.
but here's where
Because is there any American talent right now that could just step in and do that ride? Like, there's one. Is he Moto 2 or Moto 3, the American?
Joe Roberts.
Is it Joe?
Yeah, Joe's in Moto 2, and there's been speculation about him going to Trackhouse next year.
Is he ready for MotoGP, you think?
We'll see. Just got to watch him this year.
He's been doing well.
He did well. I know in Barcelona. I don't know. That was kind of odd for him to get 11th place, especially when you see a guy that's either winning a race or on the podium and suddenly gets an 11th. It's like, well, where did that come from? Or I don't know if there was a bike issue or things like that. So we just got to keep an eye on him. But most importantly, I tell you, I just think these guys don't understand, or they need help or guidance to get prepared for that. It's kind of the thing that I like to say. When you get fifth in a championship, you have to tune up your program to be able to get fourth the next year. But the biggest step you'll ever take, and I mean, it's a stratosphere apart, is going from 2 to 1. People think they'll get second in the championship and they think they're close. And I tell people, you're not close at all. That's the biggest step you'll ever take. And sometimes the transformation of a whole operation to make that step can be monumental. But it's the biggest step you'll ever take. Because one guy stands at the top and everybody else is looking up.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's, I'm not saying people can't just go over there, but when you say being over there is one thing, having a shot at the championship is a completely different language. So, but I just think that, we need to get our guys and really get them prepared, mentally and physically. And if that means putting them through the old school, Kenny Roberts training ranch routine, then that's what's going to happen. Because if you got you got to almost be so over prepared that when you go over there, it's like you back it down a few notches. Or otherwise, I think it's a struggle. And like you said, it also too for Americans and for Australians. You got to pack up and basically move over there. It's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. It's not as easy just from a regular life standpoint as people might think.
Yeah, I mean, you see that with a guy like Tom Vial, like he comes over here from Europe and it takes him a couple years and he wins and it's like, man, it was hard. It was so much harder than I thought, adapting to a new language, adapting to a new culture. And I mean, America's a very different culture, like even for Australia. Like I come over here, I speak the language. Australia's a very Western culture, but like there's a lot of cultural differences that, and I don't know whether it's like hard to deal with, but it just kind of like makes you miss home.
Oh, no, it does. And you think, oh, you go
It's
to
not,
England.
It's not it's a bad place. It's
Yeah,
just,
no, I know. It's like England, where they speak English, but England and America, it's radically different.
chalk and cheese.
Yeah. No, I know the cuisine, the food, the lifestyle, everything about it's different, Yeah, so basically you just explained it. So it's more, there's so much more
Nuance.
that you have to be, there's so many more nuances you have to be prepared for to be successful there. And I don't see the mechanisms in place to really get our guys ready to go over there. And I always tell people, if why go over there if you're not gonna make,
really have a crack.
Really have a crack at it.
Mm.
And even now in the current configuration that it's all in, I mean, it's just something for the listeners and even for you to think about. Up until recently, it was owned by the Spanish, run by the Spanish.
Do you know how much they sold it for?
I thought I heard something $4 billion. Could be something in that range, but you never know.
So they bought it off Dorna, and Dorna is just like is it like a family business or?
Well, I know that they've retained, Carmelo and the staff sort of to keep running. It's almost like the Justin Marks thing. Justin acquired the team and he just kept all the same staff because he knew they already knew the process and procedures and he's.
I wonder, do you know how much Dorna still owns?
I don't.
Very interesting.
Well, and two, when you say, do I know? Well, knowing and assuming because of what you heard or read is, can be different. So, But back to my point is here we are Americans and, you'll hear them say, oh yeah, we want Americans and we want Australians and we want this and that. But when suddenly if that were to show up and start beating those guys, they won't want it so much anymore. And from a political side of it, as I said, those guys like Repsol, that's a government. These are huge backers that have, and you think about our politics here in America, what goes on and the influencers and how some of these guys, where the money's at and who can influence who. And it's sort of that way over there because you're not going to roll over there and get in, oh yeah, this is a, you get the grade A stuff. I don't believe it.
You hear things about tires on top of containers, and this guy gets tires that are more to the bottom of the container because the top of the container's already got hot a few times on the boat.
Listen, I've had situations where they roll. I remember at Daytona, it was Eddie, and it was Mike Baldwin, Jimmy Felice, and I was there, but I only rode the amateur part because I wasn't old enough. But we all used Michelin. Right. And we all had the same tires when they would, fit the tires. But when the tires came over, it had Lawson. They were marked specifically where those went. And I mean, why do you think that is? I don't think that's by coincidence, but I just know. And I think to myself, my gosh, it's gotten, if the deck is stacked that way, it's almost like we got to find a way to get our government involved. And it's like, if we don't get the stuff, we'll cut off the funding to your country. We got to have some power here, like some real power. I remember in the early, and actually it was in 1990, Yamaha, for the 250 Grand Prix, they were only going to make 4 factory bikes, and they made those factory bikes, and they had the 4 riders, and a Spanish guy named Alberto Puig, who runs the Repsol, who's the team manager for the Repsol Honda team currently. His father had some influence with the King of Spain because he manufactured boats and things of that nature. And Yamaha said, nope, there's no more factory bikes. But when the King of Spain got a hold of Yamaha, suddenly another 5th factory bike showed up. So that's what I mean by the political clout and power. But hopefully this transition to Liberty Media, it could change that.
Yeah.
Potentially, because like you said, those guys, you can't underestimate them. And like you say, even though they want all these different cultures back over there and they want everybody to compete, I'm sure they don't want us over there just mopping the floor.
We want you to do well.
But just not as good as us.
Not too well.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it's multidimensional, and I mean, there's a lot of elements to it that you have to think about. But just back to the basics, here in America, we have to have a bigger pond, or basically a bigger pool of water to fish from. And even when we find the right fish, we have to be able to condition and train them in such a manner that they can go over there and withstand all the activities that are going to be thrown at them, because it's and being away from home. I mean, it's a hard life.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.